There is a strange paradox in life that most empaths never understand. The kinder you become, the more honest your heart is, the more you begin to attract people who are silently uncomfortable in your presence, not because you harmed them, not because you competed with them, but because your light reminds them of everything they have abandoned within themselves. This is one of the most painful lessons an empath must learn. Not everyone who smiles at you celebrates you. Some admire you, some need you, and some secretly resent the peace they cannot find inside themselves. Today we will uncover why this happens and, more importantly, how to stop carrying the emotional weight of people who are fighting battles that were never yours. Have you ever walked into a room with no intention other than to be yourself, only to notice that someone immediately became uncomfortable? You spoke with kindness, you listened without judgment, you carried no desire to impress anyone, and yet there was tension that you could not explain. For many empaths, this becomes a confusing pattern. They begin asking themselves, what did I do wrong? But the deeper truth is often this: you did not create the discomfort, you simply revealed something that was already there. A genuine heart has a quiet power. It does not need to speak loudly. It does not need to announce its goodness. Like a still lake reflecting the sky, authenticity naturally reflects whatever stands before it. Those who are at peace feel safe in its presence. Those who are carrying unresolved pain often feel exposed. This is not because you are judging them. It is because your way of being silently reminds them of the distance between the life they are living and the life they secretly wish they had. Most people believe that resentment is born from competition. Sometimes it is, but often resentment begins much earlier. It begins when someone sees in another person a quality they abandoned within themselves. Your patience reminds them of their anger. Your honesty reminds them of the lies they continue telling themselves. Your calmness reminds them of the storms they refuse to face. None of this is spoken aloud, yet it is deeply felt. An empath does not intentionally become this mirror. It happens naturally because an empath is less concerned with wearing masks. While many people spend enormous energy creating an image, the empath is often searching for truth. And truth has an unusual effect. It makes genuine people feel welcomed, but it makes those hiding from themselves increasingly uncomfortable. Imagine entering a room with a bright candle. The candle does not attack the darkness. It does not argue with it. It simply shines. Yet the moment light appears, everything hidden becomes visible. Dust can no longer hide in the corners. Shadows lose their certainty. The candle never intended to expose anything, but exposure is the natural consequence of light. Your presence works in the same way. This is why some people may criticize qualities they secretly admire. They may call your kindness weakness because they have forgotten how to trust. They may call your humility an act because they cannot imagine sincerity without hidden motives. They may question your intentions because they themselves have learned to expect manipulation. They are not always seeing you. Very often they are seeing the world through the lens of their own wounds. This understanding changes everything. Instead of carrying unnecessary guilt, you begin carrying awareness. You stop shrinking your personality just to make insecure people feel comfortable. You stop apologizing for bringing peace into spaces that have become addicted to conflict. You stop believing that every negative reaction is evidence that you have failed. But there is another lesson hidden within this. Never allow someone else's discomfort to become your identity. The moment you define yourself through the reactions of others, you hand them authority over your inner world. An empath must learn that being deeply compassionate does not mean becoming responsible for every emotion that enters the room. You can acknowledge another person's pain without claiming ownership of it. This is not an invitation to become cold. It is an invitation to become wise. Continue offering kindness, but stop measuring your worth by how comfortably others receive it. Continue living honestly, but do not dim your light simply because someone prefers the safety of darkness. Your authenticity is not a weapon against others. It is a quiet invitation for those who are ready to meet themselves, and those who reject that invitation are revealing their struggle, not your fault. One of the most painful realizations for an empath is discovering that not everyone who comes close is drawn by love. Many are drawn by relief. There is a difference. Love seeks connection while relief seeks escape. An empath often becomes a place where exhausted minds can rest, anxious hearts can breathe, and troubled souls can feel understood. This is a beautiful gift, but it also carries a hidden danger. The same people who find comfort in your presence may eventually begin to resent the very peace that first attracted them. Think about how often someone has come to you with the same problems over and over again. You listened patiently, you encouraged them, you reminded them of their strength when they had forgotten it. You believed in them during moments when they could not believe in themselves. For a while, they appreciated your presence, but then something changed. Instead of becoming inspired by your calmness, they became irritated by it. Instead of feeling grateful, they became distant. Instead of celebrating your growth, they quietly hoped you would struggle alongside them. Why does this happen? Because receiving peace is much easier than creating it. Many people admire the results of inner work, but they avoid the discipline required to achieve it. They see your patience, but not the years you spent learning not to react. They see your compassion, but not the countless moments when you had to forgive yourself and others. They see your emotional stability, but not the nights you sat alone, facing your own fears without running from them. Peace is not luck. Peace is earned. It is built through countless decisions that no one else sees. Every time you chose understanding instead of revenge, every time you remained silent instead of feeding an unnecessary argument, every time you accepted pain without allowing it to harden your heart, you were laying another stone on the path toward inner freedom. But people who have never walked that path often mistake your peace for something you were simply born with. This misunderstanding creates envy. They begin asking themselves, why do they always seem so grounded while I feel overwhelmed? Instead of looking inward, they look outward. Instead of accepting responsibility for their own emotional state, they unconsciously blame the person who reminds them of what they are missing. The admiration that once brought them closer slowly transforms into resentment because your existence silently exposes the work they continue postponing. This is why an empath must be careful not to confuse being needed with being valued. Someone may constantly seek your advice without respecting your boundaries. They may depend on your encouragement while ignoring your own emotional needs. They may reach for your light every time the world grows dark, yet disappear the moment they feel better. This is not always intentional, but it is still unhealthy. There comes a point when compassion must be balanced with wisdom. You are not here to become an emotional shelter for people who refuse to build a home within themselves. If someone continually borrows your strength without developing their own, they are not healing, they are becoming dependent. And dependency is fragile. The moment your peace reminds them of their own unwillingness to grow, gratitude can quickly become resentment. Do not fear this truth. It is not meant to make you suspicious of everyone. It is meant to help you recognize the difference between healthy connection and unhealthy attachment. Healthy people are inspired by your peace because it encourages them to cultivate their own. Unhealthy people want your peace without embracing the responsibility that created it. So continue offering kindness, but never give away the foundation that keeps your own spirit standing. Your peace is a gift to share, not a burden for others to consume endlessly. There is another lesson that surprises many empaths. You may never see yourself as someone who competes with others. In fact, you often avoid comparison altogether. You celebrate another person's success without feeling diminished. You are content to walk your own path without needing recognition or applause. Yet despite this, you may find yourself treated as though you have entered a competition that you never agreed to join. Someone becomes distant after your success. A friend suddenly becomes critical when your life begins to improve. A colleague starts dismissing your ideas even though you have always supported theirs. It feels confusing because in your heart there was never a contest. This is the nature of silent competition. It exists only in the mind of the person who constantly measures their worth against others. They cannot understand someone who simply wishes to grow. To them, every achievement must create a winner and a loser. Every compliment given to someone else feels like something taken away from them. Because they have built their identity on comparison, your quiet progress becomes a threat without you ever intending it to be. An empath often carries confidence in a very different way. It is not loud. It does not seek attention. It does not need to announce itself. It simply comes from knowing who you are and accepting who you are not. This kind of confidence is difficult to imitate because it is not built on appearance, status, or approval. It is built on inner alignment. And people who have not yet found that alignment can mistake your peace for superiority, even when you have never acted as though you were above anyone. Notice how people sometimes react when you remain calm during conflict. They may accuse you of thinking you are better than everyone else. In reality, you are simply refusing to feed unnecessary negativity, or perhaps you choose to spend time improving improving yourself instead of engaging in gossip. Suddenly, your silence is interpreted as arrogance. Your discipline is called obsession. Your boundaries are labeled selfishness. What is happening is not an honest evaluation of your character. It is an emotional reaction from someone who feels challenged by your example. This is why you must never allow yourself to be pulled into proving your intentions. The moment you begin defending your humility, your kindness, or your motives to people who have already decided who you are, you become trapped in a battle that has no finish line. Those who are committed to misunderstanding you will reinterpret every explanation to fit the story they have already created. Understand this deeply. Not every conflict requires your participation. Some battles exist entirely within another person's perception. They are arguing with the image they have created of you, not with the person you truly are. If you step into that argument, you give life to something that was never yours in the first place. Instead, continue walking your path with quiet consistency. Let your actions remain steady regardless of how others interpret them. If someone celebrates your growth, be grateful. If someone feels threatened by your growth, do not shrink to protect their comfort. You cannot build another person's confidence by abandoning your own. The world will always contain those who compare, compete, and measure. But your task is not to join them. Your task is to remain rooted in your own purpose. Growth is not about becoming better than someone else. It is about becoming more honest than you were yesterday, more peaceful than you were yesterday, and more present than you were yesterday. When you stop accepting invitations to invisible competitions, you protect something far more valuable than your reputation. You protect your inner peace. As you begin to understand these patterns, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Not every opinion people have about you actually belongs to you. Some of the heaviest burdens empaths carry were never theirs to begin with. They were handed to them by people who could not bear the weight of their own inner conflict. This is one of the oldest habits of the human mind. When a person refuses to face what lives within them, they unconsciously search for someone else to carry it. Imagine someone who is deeply dishonest. Instead of confronting that dishonesty, they become suspicious of everyone around them. They assume people have hidden motives because hidden motives are what they understand. Or consider someone filled with anger that they have buried for years. They may accuse you of being hostile even when you speak with patience. What they are seeing is not your reality. They are seeing their own emotions reflected back at them. Empaths are especially vulnerable to this because they naturally try to understand people. This is one of their greatest strengths, but without awareness, it can also become a weakness. When someone says, "You are selfish," the empath immediately begins searching their heart. Perhaps I have been selfish. Maybe I missed something. When someone says, "You don't care," the empath replays every conversation, every action, every moment, trying to discover where they failed. Self-reflection is valuable, but endless self-doubt is not wisdom. It becomes a prison. There is a profound difference between honest feedback and emotional projection. Honest feedback invites growth. Projection demands that you carry emotions that were created in someone else's unresolved world. If you fail to recognize this difference, you will spend years apologizing for wounds you never caused and trying to repair relationships that were never broken by your actions. Notice how often people reveal themselves through the accusations they make. Someone consumed by jealousy often believes everyone else is jealous. Someone who manipulates others assumes manipulation is everywhere. Someone who constantly judges people imagines they are being judged all the time. The human mind often interprets reality through the condition of its own heart. This is why wisdom requires more than listening to words. It requires seeing the pain behind them. This does not mean every criticism should be ignored. Humility asks us to remain open to correction. If you truly make a mistake, acknowledge it, learn from it, grow through it, but never confuse humility with accepting every label someone places upon you. A person can sincerely believe something about you and still be completely mistaken. Their certainty does not make it true. The challenge for an empath is that compassion can blur these boundaries. Because you understand suffering, you may excuse harmful behavior for far too long. You tell yourself, they've been hurt, they don't mean it. Perhaps that is true. But understanding why someone acts a certain way does not require you to absorb the consequences of their unresolved pain. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. There comes a moment when you must quietly return what never belonged to you. If someone hands you shame that is rooted in their own insecurity, you do not have to carry it. If someone places guilt upon you to avoid facing their own choices, you do not have to accept it. If someone projects fear, anger, or resentment onto your life, you can acknowledge their suffering without making it your identity. This is the freedom that awareness brings. You stop collecting emotional burdens simply because someone else could not hold them. You stop defining yourself through accusations that have no foundation in truth. And little by little, your heart becomes lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you have learned to distinguish between what belongs to your soul and what belongs to someone else's unfinished journey. The moment you stop carrying another person's shadow, your own light becomes impossible to hide. Perhaps the hardest lesson an empath will ever learn is that not everyone wants to be healed. This truth can feel almost impossible to accept because your heart naturally moves toward people who are hurting. When you see someone in pain, you do not immediately think about protecting yourself. You think about easing their burden. You offer your time, your patience, your encouragement, and sometimes even your own peace. You believe that if someone has become bitter, there must still be goodness beneath the surface waiting to be awakened. Sometimes that belief is beautiful, but sometimes it becomes the very reason you remain trapped in relationships that slowly drain the life from you.